It's the Growler with BD and J. Here to analyze for you today. From Growler Bet to Jay's got stats. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Growler Podcast.
All right. Welcome into the latest edition of PD&J on the Growler. Paul Dehner Jr., Jay Morrison, here with you on a Thursday. Bengals Browns week. Boo season is upon us. The Battle of Ohio is here. How are we doing, Jay?
I'm doing great. This is going to be one of the best football watching weekends I can remember in a long time. I mean, it starts tonight. Chargers Broncos, as Joe Burrow said, pretty big game. That's going to tell a lot about the Bengals' chances. Then you got OU and the bowl game tomorrow. You got a playoff game tomorrow night. You got 2 NFL games and 3 playoff games Saturday. We don't exactly build to the most exciting game with the boo on Sunday, but it's there. We'll be there. We'll be covering it. We'll be watching.
We will be there. I'm excited about it. And plus, we've got our Christmas show, Jay.
Yes.
Our Christmas live show. It's like, talk about building to the main event.
That's it.
We are giving away gifts to all of the Growl Pals. It is going to be our Christmas show this Sunday, 10 o'clock, leading into Bengals Browns, which kicks off at 1. But between 10 and 11, we will be at our exclusive home for all of our live events, BetMGM, Sportsbook, Nation Kitchen and Bar, at the Banks, giving away gifts to you. We got our ad here with we're all in weird Santa hats, and Mark appears to be very concerned, looking down in a weird direction. I'm not sure about that, but either way, we are going to be. We've got the list of stuff. We ran through this the other day. We're going to have jerseys, Burrow, Chase. We have the vintage jerseys, right?
Yeah.
We've got Pete Johnson and Jeff Blake signed by them that are going to be gifts that we're going to be giving away. We've got Bengals. We have team gear, right? We're going to be giving away some team gear. We're going to have a Graders shipper pack. You want the Graders shipper pack, custom made by yourself, that we send, that can show up at your front door or the door of somebody that you care about and forgot to get a Christmas gift for. Boom.
Perfect.
We can do that for you. And some other special prizes that could be there. You just show up and guess what? You'll find out. So we've got lots of stuff planned for you. Replica helmet, you name it. So many gifts that we're going to give away to all of our Growl Pals that have been so awesome all year long. 10 o'clock down at Nation BetMGM before the game. Take the streetcar, hop up, walk right in the door, have a $3 Cincy Light, some delicious food, fire up a mimosa or some bloodies or whatever, get some free stuff, and go on about your day. So it's going to be a great time. I'm very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, I am too. Mark obviously has a great sense of humor as a comic. I wonder how he feels about that picture. I know exactly what that picture's from. It was, I believe you were shaking either Ken Anderson or Dre Kirkpatrick's hand, because I remember somebody commenting saying Mark looks very concerned about that handshake, and that's what they clipped that one from. So yeah, I'll be interested to listen to Who They Light, see what he thinks about that picture being used on this hat.
It all works out. I like it. And also, we will be doing a live show for the Broncos game now that we have the time set on that. That's a 4:30 kickoff. We'll be doing the noon start for us on that. More news on that once we get through this. I'm very excited about what we're going to be doing for that game. So keep an eye out for that. We'll have news on that once we get through this one. So anyway, hope to see all of you down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen Bar at the Banks on Sunday. A little bit of news to tick through. You mentioned the big game tonight. So you've got Chargers, you've got Broncos. Essentially, if the Broncos win, you can basically kiss it goodbye, the chances of the playoffs happening. If the Broncos lose, the door obviously, very much as we discussed on Tuesday, opens up for the Bengals to make this a reality, because then it will just be a matter of they'll have to beat the Browns, obviously, and then the Broncos here in Cincinnati. And then it would come down to the last week of the season with the Bengals going to Pittsburgh and the Broncos playing the Chiefs. And if those results go their way and you get the requisite Miami and Indy loss, the Bengals are in. So it's possible. It's very much possible for them to still do it if you get the result you want Thursday night. It opens up a little bit more. It's not total.
And-
I mean, I I don't like talking about these percentages, but let's see what happens on Thursday night. If that happens, now we can start to talk a little more real about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, if the Broncos win tonight, I would imagine it's going to be less than 1% chance for the Bengals to get in. The Chargers would have to lose to the Patriots and the Raiders. I just don't see that happening.
No. So we've also got, let's see, there was a little bit of love for Lou Anarumo from Joe Burrow yesterday, who was kind of asked about Lou, and I certainly didn't take Joe Burrow talking about Lou Anarumo as saying this means that he's off limits at all. I think it was pointing out that he likes Lou Anarumo and thinks he's a good coordinator. And I don't think that that's something that's out of line with the way everybody in the building and in the NFL kind of views Lou Anarumo. Doesn't necessarily change what's going to come next, potentially. I don't think that affects any of those decisions. It's just a matter of, look, I like Lou. Like a lot of people, that doesn't necessarily mean that ends up being the direction that the team or wants to go or should go.
Yeah, and he pointed out too that he's a very good friend of the family. I mean, Joe's dad, a defensive coordinator for a number of years. I'm sure he and Lou see things a lot the same way. And so you're right, Lou is just an incredible person and very likable. And I think he was just, kind of a weird question, but it was because Lou and Joe were kind of cutting up before practice, and so that's where that question came from. And I don't read too much. He wasn't stumping for Lou. He was just asked about him, and he gave his honest thoughts about him.
Yeah. Speaking of honest thoughts, we're gonna tie a little bit of a bow around the Joe Burrow, Zac Taylor caught on camera venting, and the really Burrow's demeanor in general that's been such a topic of discussion, and we've seen that be different this year. I thought they were both very good. Like a lot of questions to Zac Taylor and then a lot of questions to Joe Burrow about his, demeanor and venting and all of the things that happened and his feelings on being more vocal and agitated. Publicly at least. And so I want to bring you those, and then we can just kind of quick tie a bow on around something that obviously we spent a lot of time talking about on Tuesday. And so I don't want to go too much more into it, but I do think what was said on Wednesday is important to hear. And so here's Joe Burrow, and kind of the question leading into this that started it off was about, if there's a need for more fire like that, the accountability nature of him acting and being as vocal as he has been. And then we'll bring Zac Taylor in after what Joe has to say. So here they are from Wednesday.
I think we can pick our spots to do that. There's definitely discussions had this week about what was good enough, what wasn't good enough from the game. I can probably do a better job of keeping my emotions in check in that situation. Like I said, it wasn't directed at Zac. It was just a display of frustration of the day that we had as an offense, and how sloppy it was. We've had those discussions in-house and talked about what needs to be better and what was great too.
You've never been through a season where you've been in this spot really before. Are there things that you're learning about yourself on the fly a little bit in terms of handling some of these situations that are really new to you at this point in the year?
Yeah, you just like with anything, you get new reps at things, you grow and you learn from them. There's been a lot of challenges this year, a lot of adversity that we're fighting through, and doing some good things and doing some bad things. So just like any week, you grow and you learn from them, and try to make the most out of it. Can continue to stay disciplined and consistent in what you can do, and try to get better.
Joe, like relative to that moment that the TV cameras caught at the end of the game, have you observed in that situation or any others where teammates have maybe responded in a productive way? Do you think people take, a cue or a message from moments like that when they see that you're, as a leader of this team, as upset as you were?
I hope so. I haven't had any of those direct discussions like that, but I always just try to display a championship mindset, and when things are good and good enough to do what we want to do, then I try to verbalize that. And when things aren't up to standard, in my opinion, I try to verbalize that as well. And like I said, I probably could have done that in a better way on Sunday, but I just hold myself and I hold our team to a high standard, and I expect greatness out of us. And when it's not that, I get frustrated. When it's not that from myself, when it's not that from everybody, I get frustrated. And it started with myself on Sunday. I got really frustrated at the turnovers that I was having, and then we piled on top of that with some mental mistakes, both from myself and from everybody else. And so that was frustrating. And we still did some great things. We put up 31 points on one of the top defenses in the league. We didn't have the ball a ton in the second half, but the first half we were moving it, we were hitting explosives, we were putting it in the end zone. So there was a lot of really good, but also some that wasn't up to standard.
There's been a lot of time this year spent discussing Joe Burrow's demeanor on the sideline during games, being caught on broadcast. How much do you care about that stuff with him being the quarterback and the leader of the team, or do you view it all as competitive nature of the game, things happen?
He's got an edge to him that I balance as a head coach because I'm always trying to lead the entirety of the team and balance things, but he's got an edge to him that is what makes him who he is. And I don't want to change that for 1 second, because who he is and what makes him tick is what makes Joe Burrow different from everybody else on this planet. And so, we're together a lot more than any member of my family. And so, again, I love working with him every single day. Love the edge it's about him. It's not always perfect between us when we're out there dealing with moments, but that's just part of the competitive fire that he's got that I love, and wouldn't change a thing about him. And anytime something flares up, we move on and we're quickly past it. But that's when you got a great player who winning and doing it the right way is the most important thing to him. That's the best thing you can have from a leader on your football team that doesn't accept anything that's below standard at any moment from anybody. And you're begging. There's teams around the league begging for someone to have that standard, and we've got it. And so you've got to embrace that and keep letting him lead the way for us.
Really liked the talk about the need to balance sort of Burrow's edge and leadership across the rest of the team there from Zach for one reason. Zach Taylor has been clear since the moment he sat down in front on that podium, introducing himself as head coach back in 2019. He wants a team who is player-led, player-driven, and they police themselves. They set an intense standard, and he certainly can do that and emphasize that, but he is going to be the positive, calm, sort of guardrails person that keeps the ship going in the right direction, but wants the players to be the ones to hold each other accountable. That's where the best cultures come from, right? And that was really what the culture was when it grew at the end of 20 with Von Bell's ascension, and then 21, 22, right? That was very much the DJ Readers of the world, and Von being in that, Jesse Bates. These very much not afraid to say what they think, hold each other accountable types, and the locker room kind of polices itself a little bit. That is a conducive way to win and build a culture that you're going to like. I think they lost a lot of that. And you can see Burrow filling that in a little bit more here and finding his voice. And I think that is a good balance. I think they're learning it, clearly. I mean, we're watching that in real time, and they're figuring that out. But I think you're seeing a little bit of how that can be a good. This is good. Like I'm fully on board with the fact that everything we're seeing and hearing from Burrow and the very straightforward way that he is stressing accountability publicly, showing his emotions on the sideline, all of that stuff that we've seen and talked a lot about this year. I think it's really good. And I think they're just right. They're still kind of learning the balance of what really works for the entire team.
Yeah. And I mean, he's talked about it before, was that being that vocal guy it's not something that he's been in the past and not maybe super comfortable with, but he understood the need for it. And I don't think they have a lot of guys like that. And so now the other guys see, okay, Joe's stepping out of his comfort zone and doing this, and maybe that does cause some other guys to get into that mode. And I think they need it. I think you need that edge from more than just one guy on the roster. And I thought one of the most interesting things was Zac saying, I don't want him to change anything. Teams are dying for that kind of attitude. And Joe was kind of going the other way and saying that there are some things he needs to change. It was more not what he's doing, but the timing of it. And he agreed with what Zac was trying to tell him on the sideline this is not the time. Enjoy the win. It's hard to win in this league. Enjoy the win. And he said, maybe when I come in Monday, that's when I express the frustrations with the penalties and the turnovers and everything else. And, just in that moment, take joy in the win. And it was a good point too, where it was a game they had under control and they scored that last touchdown and he knew they weren't going to have to go out on the field. The game was essentially over. And so that's when all that came out. He said if it was a close game, that never would have happened like that. But I did think that was interesting where, he was kind of admitting that, yeah, he does need to change maybe a few things. And Zac's like, don't change a thing. We like you exactly the way this is going.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, I think that, it is more about the time. It's been a long season. I mean, and they've taken a lot of losses, and there's been a lot of negativity and a lot of conversations that have been tough, and benchings and rotations and everything else. And so in the one moment where you win a game, and you did a lot right to win a game, to have it feel with this sort of gloom and doom hanging over it, it wasn't good enough. In that particular instant, like right then, I think is probably I'm assuming where that conversation came from. That doesn't make any of it wrong. I mean, you know what I mean? Like that's what everybody kind of, their whole point was that doesn't make any of this wrong. Like that's fine. It's just, if you're trying to figure out the perfect way to pick your spots, it's probably later once you get through it and really start taking the game, but give guys a chance to not just feel beaten down, like, man, won a game and it feels like a loss again, because there just haven't been enough of those, and you're just trying to keep people on board at this point.
Yeah.
Because it's rough right now and all. So I think that's probably the middle ground is where they landed and seem to come out the right side in a good enough way. I think it's been very fascinating this year to watch Joe Burrow kind of find his leadership voice. It's evolved and grown as the year has gone on, where it came from him admitting he probably needs to pick his spots more, to then starting to pick his spots, the Vegas game standing out, to what he said about T. Higgins a couple of weeks ago, to now this, and openness in addressing it and talking about expecting greatness and all of that. And admit, I just feel like you're seeing a guy sort of the way you see him learn how to get good at chess, learn how to, beat defenses by checking it down faster, learn all of these things about himself, about quarterback play, about anything. When he attacks something and wants to get better at it, you see it evolve and happen. I think you're seeing that. We're watching it and that part in real time this year. That aspect of his game has been a centerpiece.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a chicken and egg argument or discussion where he's playing out of his mind. Does playing so well make him feel more comfortable to step into that leadership vocal role, or is stepping into that role helping him play better? I maybe he doesn't even know the answer to that, but you just look at this run he's on. I mean, 6 straight games with at least 3 touchdown passes, and very few people in the league have ever done that. And he's played well all year, but he's doing what you want every single player, every single team to do, and that's get better as the season goes on. And if they could just get everybody else on this team to improve as the season goes on, maybe they would have a shot to be playing in January.
I agree. I think they could use more Joe Burrows.
Yes.
They can't pay more Joe Burrows, but they could
That's
use
true.
more Joe Burrows.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. All right. Let's flip forward and talk about this game a little bit, Jay. All right. Game outlook. Cleveland Browns. Not good, folks. Not good. You're going to hear from our good friend Zac Jackson here in a minute. Always a favorite when we get Zac to come on here and speak dark truths from the factory. But so the Browns are struggling. They've lost 5 of the last 6. The last 6 weeks, their offense is 31st in EPA per play, 32nd in points per drive. They have benched Jameis Winston. I'm really sad about this. I really was hopeful to get a Jameis experience. Maybe even just go over there for the post game just to see what Jameis would have to say after this one. We're not going to get that. We're going to get Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And so we'll see what happens with that. Their defense has been the last 6 weeks. They are 12th in points per drive, 12th in EPA per play. So they're still they're not at the elite level that they have been at times, but Denzel Ward's still really good. Myles Garrett's still really good. All the players that that have given the Bengals fits over the years still there. Last game was the 21-14 Bengals win up in Cleveland. The only win they've had recently, it was that snow game against Pittsburgh on the Thursday night. So that's about maybe are we going to see snow this weekend? Is that
not to that degree, but maybe.
Yeah, maybe some snow. Maybe not to the degree that becomes an advantage for the Browns. Line on this one on BetMGM. Bengals by 7.5. Over under at 47.5.
It was 7 until they announced DTR as a starter, and then it went to 7.5. I don't know. I still think we may get the Jameis experience. I asked Zac about this, where I think there's a good chance that DTR doesn't finish this game as the starting quarterback, and you have to go in to the week assuming that could be the case. Can you game plan that way? It just I don't know. I'm puzzled by this. I just don't. I mean, DTR did not look good at all when he played against the Bengals after Deshaun Watson got hurt. He's not looked good in really any of the games he's been in this year. And, he does the same thing Jameis does. He has 1 touchdown pass and 7 interceptions. I mean, at least Jameis, his are 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. They both turn the ball over, but at least, Jameis can move the ball and add some excitement and some. I mean, if they had gone to Jameis, and they couldn't because he was the emergency third quarterback in that first game against the Bengals, but if they'd have gone to him first instead of DTR, Bengals might have lost that game in Cleveland.
Yeah. Going to be 33 degrees, by the way, for the high on Sunday. So bring your earmuffs, bring your parkas. You're gonna
liquid
need
warmth.
It. Yeah, the liquid warmth is going to be there. What is our referee outlook for this one, Jay? It's been a lot of questionable referee stuff happening in recent weeks. What should we expect on Sunday?
Well, probably more flags. The Bengals have 3 straight games with 10+. Second week in a row, they are getting the referee who ranks 4th in the league in penalties thrown. It's not the same referee. Craig Rolstad was 4th in the league last week, and then the Bengals and Titans had 26 penalties. So Craig Rolstad is up to number 2. This week, it's Brad Rogers, and they've already had him once. He worked the Raiders game in Cincinnati earlier this year. When he came in for that game, his crew was averaging 13 penalties per game. They are up to 14.2. They've had 3 consecutive games with at least 16 accepted penalties. So we may be seeing another flag fest on Sunday.
Ugh. When is there a crew that doesn't throw flag? I feel like every time you do this every week, and I sit here and say, they're always in the top 5. How many crews are there?
There's 17 crews. So yeah, they've run the gamut on all.
When are the Bengals going to see one of these crews that just puts the flags in their pocket? I feel like we haven't had that. Ugh, great. Love those games. Love that for us. Okay. Well, we have talked a little bit about Bengals Browns generally. Let's talk about it specifically. And that means going to our great friend, the Athletics, Zac Jackson, who covers the Browns and has for a very long time. You know him. You love him. Let's go to Zac. To those of us who are watching here on YouTube, good to have you guys with us, of course. We love everybody that watches on YouTube. The Zac Jackson interview is up separately on site. You can go over somewhere and watch that, and then you can come right back to the spot and check back in with us as we'll pick right up right there. All right, great chatting with Zac, fellow OU Bobcat.
Yeah.
Living both sides of it. OU gets their MAC title, but the Browns can't break their streak of terribleness, and so he continues to live. It's just coming from a dark place. You feel for him at this point.
You do. I've got the title of his autobiography. It's Vodka and Egg Rolls, My Years Covering the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, that thing's got legs. Okay.
Yeah.
That thing's got legs. Cover, sell books. That one is selling books. It's just Zac sad standing in front of just shots of vodka and wrappers of egg rolls. Love all of this. All right. Stats. Jay, you got some stats for me?
Yeah. Which one do you want to get to first? I've got some sad sack stats, and I've got a reader submitted stat.
Oh, readers
query.
first. Readers
Okay.
first. Growl Pals always come first. What do we got?
So you just mentioned it. Bengals favored by 7.5 this week. This is the 11th game they've been favored in this year. Mike Lindemann wanted to know what the record is for times favored in a season when a team had a losing record. Now they can still finish with a winning record. So I went back and I looked. There have been 3 teams in NFL history that finished with a losing record, and yet they were finished in 14 games. The 1981 Falcons, the 2013 Lions, and the 2014 Saints. They all finished 7-9. They were all favored in 14 games that year. There's 2 other teams that finished with losing records that were favored in 13. Maybe. I think there's a good chance they might be favored against the Broncos. I don't know about getting favored in Pittsburgh, but I wouldn't rule it out if they get on a little bit of a heater and Pittsburgh stumbles. I mean, Pittsburgh lost last week, double digits to the Eagles. They got the Ravens this week. You could see it possibly happening. So if they could get to 13, that would be tied for the second most. The 1997 Cowboys went 6-10 and were favored in 13 games. And again, that's because the Cowboys are such a brand. They're always favored, trying to get more money on that side. And then the 2003 Buccaneers, I believe that was the year they were coming off the Super Bowl championship, and they went 7-9, but they were favored in 13 games.
Wow. I love readers that demand Jay go deep in the stats. You know what?
And
Get
that was
out
a
the
hard
sheets,
one. That was,
open the spreadsheets.
Yep.
Let's go, right?
That's
Love
not
it.
one you can just put in a couple filters. You have to do multiple queries and spreadsheets and formulas, and I got it done.
Challenge the man. That's what I'm all about. I love it. You're always rising to the challenge as well. All right. Speaking of, you've got some sad sack stats.
Yeah, so the Browns have sacked the Bengals at least once in 21 straight games. That is it's the longest active streak, obviously, by a team. The Steelers once did 22 in a row from 95 to 2006. So the Browns could tie that. As far as Bengals go, that's the most. The NFL record is 53. And that's just crazy to think. One team against another team. So, and that was the Giants the Eagles sacking the Giants in 53 straight games. There's actually an active streak right now of 52. The Commanders have sacked the Cardinals in 52 straight games. So next time they play, they could tie that. But the Browns have their own sad stat. And the Browns have been sacked in 43 straight games.
Wow.
That is the longest active streak in the league. And it's the 18th longest since stats became official in 1982. 43 straight.
Man, could it get broken this weekend?
Yeah.
Could it get broken this week? I'm sure Trey Hendrickson's like, look, I got my eyes on this one. But we know some of the Bengals, if they can stop Trey Hendrickson, could it come to an end? Could this be a huge moment? Probably.
I think it's possible. Double team Trey, and you got a good shot to break it.
Yeah. Wow. 43. That's a lot of games. All right. Let's get into some run passer boots here. So I think run passer boot. Let's start it off. Let's start it off with this, Jay. DTR, yards per attempt. Bengals fourth quarter points
Allowed.
Fourth quarter points allowed. Yeah, sorry, allowed. And then total sacks in the game. So we got those 3. Those all kind of will end up in probably probably in the same, some variance, but probably in the same area. I think you could see it anywhere from 3 to fourth quarter points allowed, could be all the way up to 14, but could be low. I like this. This is a good. Where you stand on this?
So the Bengals have given up double digit points in the fourth quarter 7 times this year. Franchise record is 8. The NFL record is 11. So they're not going to get the NFL record, but I could see that. I see that happening either way. If the game's close, the Browns could score and make this really interesting, possibly win the game. If the Bengals are blowing them out, some by the way points at the end. It's just they've given up points, period, in 8 straight fourth quarters. So I'm going to run with that one. I'm going to run with fourth quarter points allowed. I'll pass on the total sacks. I think there's going to be 4 or 5, somewhere in that range, at least in this game. There were 7 in the last game between the two teams. And then I'm going to boot to the moon DTR yards per attempt. He's not been good. And as bad as this Bengals defense has been, I can see him getting completions, maybe a lot of checkdowns, looking a lot like the Pittsburgh game. Maybe the Bengals tackle a little better and they don't get all that yak. I can't see him getting chunks even on this defense. So I'll boot that one.
Yeah, you're not buying the DTR with a week of planning is going to be totally different than DTR thrown in there. You're not buying it.
Not at all.
Defense, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Look, we know that the Bengals defense can catch the ball if you throw it directly to them. So maybe that, there's also a very good chance that that's going to play a role in Sunday's outcome. But yeah, I'm with you. I will say total sacks in the game. Actually, I'm gonna run with that, and then fourth quarter points I'll pass, and DTR yards per attempt I will boot. We had another Jay. We have a reader submission run, pass, or boot, correct?
Yeah, it was right up my alley. I love it because it's from Matthew Collardo. He wanted to know what alt rock song best describes the Bengals season this far, and he put 3 in there. He had some honorable mentions, but the top 3 he mentioned are. I love all 3 of these songs. So it's Never Too Late by 3 Days Grace. Obviously, the Bengals are saying it's never too late. They still got a shot to make the playoffs. Send the Pain Below by Chevelle. That speaks for itself. And then What I've Done by Linkin Park, which is more directed at the front office constructing this defense and the pending implosion of said defense, he writes. So, again, I love all 3 of these. This is really hard to pick because I love all 3 of these songs, but there's one thing. I'm going to go Never Too Late, 3 Days Grace, because there's a I don't know, a verse, a segment of that song. I'm not going to sing it like you do. I got a terrible singing voice.
Please don't. I do too, but yet I do it, and I don't know why. When I'm
done, you're a karaoke legend. You have a
Lord.
very good voice. So it's the world we knew won't come back. The time we've lost can't get back. The life we had won't be ours again. It just feels so dark. And looking back on the 2021, 2022 seasons, I just feel like I love the song. And then that part of the song specifically hits really well.
That is dark.
I love Send the Pain. I love Chevelle. I've seen him in concert several times. That's one of my favorite songs, Send the Pain Below. It starts kind of mellow and then it gets pretty hard. I'm going to boot What I've Done. That song, it's a great song, but it's sad. I mean, it's a man expressing regret and giving up, and Chester Bennington did kill himself several years ago. So
Jesus.
Listening to that now has a whole different meaning than when he was here and touring and all that. So, I know where he's going. Matt wasn't going to that dark side with it, but it's just more about the title. But that's why I'm booting that one, because it's hard to endorse that song given what happened to Chester.
I mean, Send the Pain Below feels like every single loss the Bengals have had this year. So I think that's the clear winner in my eyes. All right, Growler Bet this week. We had 2 winners last week, and so we're on a roll. We're trying again. We're clearly in the Christmas spirit. We're giving away all this stuff on Sunday. We had 2 winners last week. We're on a roll. We're gonna go back to the penalty conversation. It's been 3 straight weeks now where we've seen the Bengals have 10+ penalties, and it's not been a good run. There's a lot of frustration about it, apparently being aired behind the scenes, on sidelines, on national television, about these penalties, and specifically a lot of. We'll see how many false starts Cam Grandy can get this week and percentage false starts per snap. Have we ever taken that ratio and taken a good look at it before?
Yeah.
We'll see. Bengals penalty yardage is going to be the Bengals Growler Bet this week. Send your submissions into the Growler Podcast at gmail.com, and you could also win a bar tab. No range this week because I think you can do it. You people can do it. We didn't need the range last week, and I think this is a similar one. You can do it again. Bengals penalty yardage is the Growler Bet for this week.
So before I give my answer, I have to go back to another email we got from a Growl pal. Kyle Eberline said he went to the Tennessee game with some friends, and they were sitting in the stands behind the Bengals bench. And after the false start by the first false start by Cam Grandy, one of them said, "Who in the hell is 85?" And he said, "That's Cam Grandy, and those are his parents sitting right next to you." I remember that from my kids' youth days where we'd be sitting in the stands and, people were criticizing poor little kids playing Little League. It's like, shut up. You have no idea. Or if it's the other team, you don't know whose parents are whose. And so I was always uneasy with that. I get that would be an embarrassing situation. As for my guess, this is still, if you go to 2019 to present and Zac Taylor's tenure here with the Bengals, they are still, even after this terrible run, they are still number one by a long shot in fewest penalties and fewest penalty yards in the league over that stretch. 3 in a row with 10+ is not great, but I feel like it's a blip. You said it's been addressed internally. I think guys knowing how intense Burrow is are going to be on their P's and Q's. A lot of these are mental ones and lack of focus, as Joe said. I think they get it right this week. I think it's going to be a low number. I'm going to go 45.
45. Wow. That is a low number. I don't know. I still think there's just a lot of young players playing. And I think this game is going to be very buoy. Okay. It's going to be just only a game that only true boo lovers can appreciate, considering the stakes and just the people that are playing in this and where we're at this season, the cold, all of it. So when you've got a buoy game, you got penalties. So I'm going to say I won't take them over 100 though. I'll say 75. I'll do a nice clean 75 number on the Bengals penalty yardage, which could be as simple as one long pass interference, because I have a feeling that's going to be a philosophy of the Browns, seeing the Bengals getting a little handsy as DBs and some of the calls that have been thrown their way, whether I know people don't like all of them, but there have been a lot of calls of DPIs. So they're just, if you got no real hope offensively, what do? Throw it up and just hope something good happens. I think you could see a few of those happen, and maybe that will change it. So 75 is my answer. On that note, Jay, prediction for Sunday's game.
Yeah, I think the Bengals, they're going to score like they have been. I don't know they get over 30 on this defense, but I don't know how many times I can say. I just have no faith in this Browns offense with DTR at the helm. They have been explosive. Jerry Jeudy's been incredible the last month. Cedric Tillman really had a great relationship going with Jameis, and then he got the concussion. He's supposed to be back this week. I don't know what his chemistry is going to be like with DTR, but I think the Bengals win this fairly comfortably. And it's a scary way to go because it always seems like in the boo, you take the team that's getting the points, but not this week. The Browns have nothing to play for. They are truly playing out the string. They've made this desperation move to switch quarterbacks. I've got the Bengals winning this one pretty comfortably, 27-13.
Okay. Mine's similar. I'm giving a little bit more respect to the Browns offense, also disrespect to the Bengals defense. So I have the Browns posting 19 points, but I'm with you. The way the Bengals offense is going right now, there's so many weapons. Everybody's largely healthy. Obviously, they're figuring stuff out on the offensive line a little bit. But still, I think even this Browns defense, with some of the players they've had and the history of success that they've had, I think the Bengals they keep their streak of games with 27+ alive. and I think they hit 30. So 30-19 Bengals is my prediction for this one. Lots of field goals. That's what you want. Field goals and penalties in cold weather, just the buoyest. I love it.
The Cade York revenge game.
Oh, Cade York, man, he's just come in and storylined his face off at this point. He had the Cowboys cheerleader. Now he's going back against the Browns. Oh,
Yep.
just feel it. Arby's, what do you got?
So yesterday, we were in the locker room. There weren't a lot of guys in there, but the one guy I wanted to talk to was Jermaine Burton, doing a story on how he's developing as a kick returner. And I see him, and then he takes off running. And we realize in the middle of the open locker room period, they have a special teams meeting. So the meeting was at, I believe, 3:20, and it was 3:20 when he was running to the meeting. And he wasn't the only one cutting it right to the minute. And then 2 minutes later, Jermaine Burton's back in the locker room again. Meeting's still going on. Jermaine's back. It was a special teams meeting, but it was for punt. And he's not on the punt team. And he got into the meeting and realized, they told him, you don't need to be here. And he's like, okay, I'm out of here. And he left. Then he was back in the locker room. I was able to grab him and talk to him. And I'm trying to think, if you were at a work you were at work in an office and you thought you had to go to a meeting and then you realized you didn't have to be in that meeting, would you do what Jermaine did and say, all right, peace out and get out of there? Or would you sit there and just say, I want to know what's going on with everybody else and ride out the meeting?
I would like to think that I have other stuff to do. You know what I mean? Like now, Jermaine, I don't know if he had other stuff to do. I
did.
saw him spending
He
some
had to
time
change the
dancing.
music.
Yeah, he had to bring down the music. So I don't know. Like, I'm not doing that. Now, it's been a while since I've been in an office setting, but back in the day,
Yeah.
I'm not sitting I'm trying to avoid the meetings I'm supposed to be in, much less actually hanging out in ones I'm not supposed to be in. All right. So that my thought is that I probably have better use of my time and things that I want to get done. And so that's why I'm leaving that meeting. Now, if I had nothing but time, right? If I have if my life is just going to meetings, which at that point in time, it kind of is for some of the Bengals, I'd probably sit there and take it in and see what's going on. If somebody said, yeah, you can stay, you're fine. This isn't a closed door meeting. If you want to know our biz, we can let you know. So I think this is a different situation than that. But for me, no, I'm out. My other one was, I don't know how much people have, I don't even know if this is out there. I'm assuming it probably is. Noticed T. Higgins walking around in a Lakers number 34 Shaquille O'Neal jersey the other day, on Wednesday, and thought, that's interesting. And it was because, if you remember, Mike Tomlin essentially calling him Shaq. And they were going to take their fouls, right? They were talking about playing Shaq and Mike Tomlin, very complimentary, certainly, towards T. Higgins and the Shaq references happened. So now he's got a Shaq jersey. Well, it was given to him by Sam Hubbard through Bengals content. Sam does gifts that he gives to people on the team every year that has something to do with something that's happened during the year. And those comments resonated, and he gave it to T. And apparently T loves it because he's worn it multiple days. This isn't the first time that he's done it, and is a big fan of wearing the Shaq jersey around. I like this becoming a thing for him. I like him wearing it, and certainly feels like the walk-in when he shows up in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
That should be his attire and get that conversation going in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Tomlin was complimentary, but he also called him a goon. So I don't know how complimentary goon is.
I think goon was meant to be complimentary. Yeah. I think it was. Look, that's a Mike Tomlin free agent pitch if I've ever seen or heard one.
Right.
Like, look, use your opportunities wisely, right?
Yeah.
You can't
not
tamper. You can't say that. But you know what I can do? I can certainly compliment people on another team, and I'm going to compliment my face off about T. Higgins because could be a free agent. Steelers sure would seem like a fit. So I'm just saying. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Okay.
I mean, Bengals fans are going to be upset if T. leaves. If he goes to the Steelers, they are going to lose their minds.
You better open yourself up to the possibility he can pick wherever the hell he wants to go, and he won't be caring about the Bengals' feelings after that. He'll be following the dollar, as he should. for another day, Jay. We have
Yes.
so much time. We
Another
can't we
month.
can't open that can of worms right now. I'm just going to talk about the jersey for now. Don't worry. Plenty of more time to endlessly continue to discuss the T. Higgins saga as the next chapter is about to begin. All right. On that note, Who Dey Light tomorrow. Check in with me and Mark. We will have some fun with some of the stories of the week. And then we hope to see you all down at BetMGM Nation Kitchen and Bar at the Banks. Start from 10 to 11. We'll be running, giving away all kinds. If you show up, you're going to walk out with something. Let me just tell you that. We've got all kinds of stuff that we're going to have for you. So we hope to see all of you down there. So many great gifts that we're going to be giving away as a thank you to all of you Growl Pals for hanging with us throughout this. Not always the greatest season, but you guys have hung with us, and that's been so great. So we'll have gifts for you there. Hope to see you down there. And otherwise, then we'll talk to you on the walkout on Sunday night. So have a good one, everybody.